So welcome everybody. I appreciate you guys stopping by the Veteran Influencers YouTube channel for episode number 2 of the podcast. And obviously last week was our first one on Wednesday. We're going to try to make it Wednesdays at 5:30. And of course, I always got a special guest that's going to be joining me here on the podcast. And today, our special guest is someone that I met in Japan approximately about 5-6 years ago. Kept in contact ever since. And the way that I actually related to her is the fact that she was always in the gym, complete gym rat. And, that was something that I always admired about people. And I always looked to pick her brain about different ways that I could actually get myself in shape and to do some of the workouts that she does. And she definitely has a lot more to offer because I know that she is huge in photography, an absolute beast. I see her pictures all the time, and I just wonder how I can get my quality the same. And I know a lot of you guys probably know who she is, and she is definitely someone that I wanted to get on this show. So without further ado, Jessica Quezada.
Hey, what's going on, Chris? Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be sitting here and chatting with you just about life, everything that's going on. And it's really nice to connect with you again after all these years. So
absolutely. Finally figured out how to use this thing.
I
tried for so long. People give me all these like different ways of doing it. It just wasn't working.
I know. Technology, though, you got to figure it out.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm assuming you have that map in the background because you're going to point little spots that you've been. But hey, don't let me jump the gun now. Don't let me jump the gun. I'm pretty sure that's what it's going to be. But, that's just my observation. So,
yeah.
So let's start out. I want to start out with kind of like, obviously, you're here. I guess you can call it promoting, but I definitely want you to go over Liborisk, which is a brand / company that you have come up with. And we'll definitely get to that later on in the show. But I kind of want to give a picture of like who you are as the person, you are as the veteran, and then kind of like you are as the entrepreneur. So if we can kind of like start with like maybe a little bit from like the younger you, kind of from when you're running around in the sandbox, not that far quite, but where you're from and who you are.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, I'm from Dallas, Texas, born and raised there, Southern gal. I went to an arts magnet high school. I loved photography and just felt like it was a passion of mine that I wanted to endure and make a career at some point. But I kind of recognized that I was not the one that wanted to sit down and necessarily go to school for, the next 4 years or a university or whatnot. So
right.
I looked at the military as a background, just kind of, or, as a plan B, essentially, to seeing what could be a potential career choice, and found out that they actually had photojournalists in the military. So I went to every single branch and just was kind of like, sniffing them out, which one's best for me kind of thing. And the Marine Corps was ultimately that best decision that I made. And I ended up becoming a combat correspondent in the Marine Corps. So it was a cool transition from doing something that I really wanted to do at my arts high school to doing it in the military. So I served in Quantico for about a year. I was at the recruiting command there covering, national events, talking about the Marine Corps brand and what we do on a strategic national level as far as recruiting goes. So I got to travel quite a bit and do that for about a year, which is cool. Nice. Quantico, Virginia is so freaking cold though, man. I'm from the South. I can't
it depends on what time of year. Hold on. Quantico's got the heat.
I'm just saying, it's so cold. So yeah, and then I went and I was in Japan for 2 years, and that's where I met you. So right. I was out there in Iwakuni telling the Marine Corps story, had a bunch of great Marines that I worked with, and it was just the time of my life. And it was like my first time getting to live abroad. So my sense of travel was really achieved there. I loved traveling to begin with because my grandmother was like a huge avid traveler. You want to name a country, she was probably there. She's 93 years old. And she still probably would be traveling if she
doing
could.
it big, hey, that's how you gotta do.
I know. So I did that, and I was out in Iwakuni for 2 years, and then now I'm here in California. I was with the recruiting command, working for the marketing and advertising section, and the director there. And this will be my last year in the Marine Corps. So looking forward to kind of the transition out and taking off the uniform.
Oh, that's definitely gonna be a sad day to see. But before we get to that part, so. I know that one part that you spoke about early on is before you actually went to your art school, you spoke about a bit wanting to be a photojournalist. So like, I first of all, I never really had I think I had like a Polaroid back in the day, you know what I'm saying? But I
Yeah.
never really had a camera until I got into the Marine Corps. So how do you get into photojournalism like at a young age? I'm assuming it's been like a young age, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just started taking photos when I was younger, and I felt like I could always compose like a moment and capture it in time. So that was something that I really loved doing. And I did a lot of other artistic endeavors too. I had some other hobbies. I was a sculptor, a painter, a printmaker. I did a bunch of other things. I actually grew up and I was a ballerina too. I like dance, and I know like nobody will imagine that nowadays. I'm so
Ain't nothing wrong with
uncoordinated.
that.
But yeah, I mean, like I just really loves kind of capturing that moment. And like one of the photographs that I was absolutely inspired by was the image by Joe Rosenthal, the flag raising of Iwo Jima, which was actually a still of a video clip. But either way, I mean, it was just like this monumental moment that kind of shifted not just like a mindset or potentially a situation with what the United States was going through during World War II, but it was beautifully captured, and it was something that I kind of wanted to replicate and achieve. And I felt like photojournalism was more of the storytelling side of what was happening and could happen in humanity. So
Right.
that's why I don't know, I was more inclined to pursue that than anything else. So
Okay. So I know you spoke about a little bit earlier with the introduction how you talked about how you actually went to the different branches to kind of like see what type of, I don't know, programs or to see who had photojournalism in their branch, or at least that can like closely relate the most.
mhm.
But what was your main drive for even joining the Marine Corps? Because I mean, really, you could do photojournalism anywhere. I know you said you didn't want to go to school per se, but I mean, is that something you have to go to school for? And like, what made you go from I don't want to go to school and specifically the military? You know.
Mhm. So photojournalism is one of those fields where it doesn't really matter what degree you have. It's more about the experience, right? And so
Right.
like, I mean, the Marine Corps is one big fat experience. The military in general is. It's
No,
just like,
no.
yeah, the epitome of experimental living. So I was like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. But I actually looked at every single branch. I sat down with the Air Force, the Navy, the Army, and I was kind of iffy about the Marine Corps. I didn't really like the recruiter that I was chatting with. But I was invited to a PT session, one of their workouts with like the kids who are already waiting to go to boot camp.
Right.
And it was like an initial strength test. We had to run a mile and a half. And I'm like, I go to an art school. Like, what makes you think I can run a mile and a
Who
half?
runs?
I
Yeah.
know who does that.
Yeah.
So sure enough, I'm running this mile and a half. I am the slowest person there. I mean, pushing a goddamn 14-minute mile and a half. It was sad. I was
Jeez.
so slow, right? And so I'm huffing and puffing and I'm like running. I wasn't fat as a kid. I was just like didn't do that stuff, you know?
Right. Right.
And, and so I'm running and I'm like, God, I'm not gonna make it. And sure enough, all the kids who finished that run came back after me and ran and finished that run with me. So
That's dope.
right, I was like, oh man, I love this. Like this little like family that they created, and the Marine Corps is big on that anyway, especially when you look at recruiting in general, right? So it
Right.
was kind of like this really big moment for me because it helped me recognize like kind of the family that I wanted to be a part of. And I wasn't just going to choose any branch. I wanted to be a part of the best. So that's what ultimately, like that day, I chose the Marine Corps.
Wow. That's actually a really great story. And like that, I mean, that's how I feel as well. Like what I guess at a certain point, what got you to join is not always going to be what keeps you in. And
Yeah,
one thing that's kept me in is like that type mentality right there, where it's like you never leave anybody behind type thing. And that's what's always motivated me about the Marine Corps.
for
Um,
sure.
yeah, absolutely. So now we got you. You didn't want to go to school. You per se. Sorry, I keep bringing that up. She don't
It's
like school,
okay.
people. She hates it.
Yeah, at that time, I did not.
So she didn't want to go to school. She looked at the different branches, realized that the Marine Corps was the best. And so you joined, and then so you early on, prior to even actually joining, you get a good experience from the pulley program. You kind of saw what it was about. So how do you describe your like initial phase of like from recruit training to maybe like to the time that you hit the fleet?
Um, I felt like I was in such like a cool field, right? So the military itself, you know, we have these standard operating procedures. We got like, you know, just templates and the way that things are done. But when you look at photojournalism and writing in the military, you kind of have these lateral limits, but not so much, right? You get to be really creative. And the military by design is not super creative, right? Like, you know, we just aren't. And so you look at the photojournalism field. Yeah. I'm just saying. Yeah. I'm just saying, but it's also a good point too, right? Because like this ideal of photojournalism has kind of degraded. Like there's not so much credibility in this field anymore. Because you look at CNN or Fox News, whatever reporting is nowadays, it's so skewed, right? There's always an agenda. But I feel like that was the cool thing that I learned about like the military photojournalism aspect itself. Is like we can't lie, you know, we can't really Photoshop anything, we can't BS anything. So you know, learning the field to the accuracy and to the T that it was, and getting to practice that in the military. The school was really cool, and it was integrated with the other branches. So we got to really see, you know, the storytelling side of the military. And the cool thing about it too is like, right, the Marine Corps is the smallest branch in the DoD, right?
Right.
Smallest branch. So if America doesn't necessarily need a Marine Corps, America wants a Marine Corps. How are we portraying and how are we telling the stories of Marines and what we're doing on this global, you know, endeavor? And like that story that we portray ultimately, you know, is a decision maker for a lot of people in determining whether or not the Marine Corps is really a necessity. And I feel like I get to be a part of that aspect of really making the Marine Corps seem important, because we are. But nobody would ever know if you didn't have storytellers like us. So that's what like that the schoolhouse was really embedded in, was making sure that we were contributing to the mission more than I think people really thought.
Right. No, that's definitely something to keep in mind. You know, it's sometimes we get stagnant, and I don't mean to make this whole like, but we're going to eventually evolve to what I'm trying to do. But, you know, sometimes we get stagnant, and it's like sometimes when you don't keep in mind why you're doing what you're doing, or like your ultimate purpose of like what you get out of it, sometimes, you know, you get comfortable with what you're doing, and, you know, and you might kind of like drift away from what you wanted to do in the first place. But like knowing the purpose and the why, a lot of times it's kind of like brought me back to reality of where I should be at to keep me moving forward. So that's, yeah, that's awesome. So that's early on to the time you're in the fleet. So I heard you speak a little bit earlier about transitioning out, but hey, we're not going there yet. So we're going to backtrack just a little bit. So that's your actual MOS part, what you got to do for that. But let's kind of like transition into how that actually, I'm assuming that's what sparked the idea for the entrepreneurism. I just made up a word, I'm pretty sure, but entrepreneurship or something. I don't know.
Entrepreneurship, maybe.
There we go. Yeah. I'm going to have to look that. Hey, anybody in the chat, go ahead and let me know if I'm bugging right now.
I'm pretty sure that's a word. We'll find out afterwards.
Right. So like, was there something while you were doing your actual MOS and different experiences that actually sparked the idea like, hey, I can do something outside of my MOS and work on my second retirement?
That kind of came more into the marketing and advertising field. So when you're a correspondent or a photojournalist in the Marine Corps, you get to go out to a recruiting station for a couple of years and essentially do marketing and advertising. So I've been doing that for the past 4 years at the recruiting station in Orange County. Right. And I've kind of recognized that like marketing and advertising is really just like fluffy stuff. And it's you essentially solving a problem to get a brand out there and to get leads. And so there was a lot of issues that I felt like I solved because, you know, just because it's been done for a long time this way does not mean that's the greatest and the best process, right? And the Marine Corps tends to get stuck into that. It's like, we've been doing this for years, right? This is the best idea ever.
Not the Marine Corps.
I'm like, no, that's not. Like.
We're gonna get roasted in the comment section.
Yeah, like let's like freaking like actually think about this. Just because it's been done like this for the past 5 years does not mean it should be done now. And I questioned a lot of things that were happening at the recruiting level because there was just no strategy to it. There was no heart to it. There was nothing that was like solid, embedded as far as a process goes and really understanding what marketing and advertising in the military means. And so I questioned that a lot. And I changed some policies and I changed some things that were happening. And when I did that, I recognized within myself that I'm like, entrepreneurship itself is really just finding a solution to a problem, right? And bringing value to people's lives. You know, like you just solved something that is essentially a burden to somebody And maybe you make money off of it. Maybe you make profit off of it. But at the end of the day, it's really just solving a problem to a solution that many people are dealing with. That's what I felt like I was doing at the recruiting level by the marketing and advertising, issues that we had. And I felt like I did really well at that. So I was like, oh my God,
Right.
I started thinking about some of the things that I necessarily have an issue with in my life, whether it's personal, professional, whatever it is. And then I think, and I break it down a little bit more to seeing how I can actually just have a solution and make it the easiest process possible. And that's where I felt like maybe the, entrepreneurship or the entrepreneurial spirit in me came out.
Right.
But I really do attribute that to having this opportunity to be in the marketing and advertising field in the Marine Corps. Otherwise, I would have never even considered the possibilities of doing the sort of things that I am doing right now.
Right. So I know we spoke offline a little bit earlier, and I was telling you that my reasoning, and I'm not trying to make this, this episode about me, but I kind of want to give a little back thought about it so we can kind of tie it in. But is one of the reasons why I decided to start Veteran Influencers was because I spoke to a lot of Marines that from junior Marine to senior Marine, 27 years, 28. I think the longest time in service that I spoke to was 28 years, right? So
Yeah.
the conversation goes like this, hey, what's going on, Master Sergeant or Master Gunner Sergeant? I think it was 1-star major, but I was like, Master Gunner Sergeant, what are your plans when you get out? Do you have anything lined up? Are you, do you have your own business or, what is it that you have going on? Or is it just I just plan on vacationing. I did 30 years of my life and, I'm just going to collect that check, you know what I'm saying? And you'll be surprised. A lot of them were honestly, I don't have a necessary plan. And that kind of boggled my mind because I'm like, if you don't have a plan, how am I expected to have a plan? Or how do we expect to stop this whole I don't have a plan type thing? So I was like, all right, went to the next senior Marine. Same thing. It's I just felt like I didn't save up enough money. And listen, people go through things in lives, whether it's divorce or whatever. And I'm, I've dealt with it as well to where it's you felt like you should have more money. Had I known this, I would have done X, Y, and Z. So I completely get it. But I truly believe that there's a trend, at least in the Marine Corps. I don't know about, I can't speak on any other branch, but I feel like there's a trend in the Marine Corps of not having a plan prior to wanting to depart the military, whether you're retiring or whether you're getting out. So I was like, all right, those are the senior Marines, right? Close to 30 years, which is it broke my heart, but I was like, all right, let me try this. So I spoke to one of my sergeants. I was like, hey, what's your plan for getting out? What's your, what are you working on as far as your second retirement? And he looked at me like I was crazy. What do you mean my second retirement? I was like, yeah. What are you working on, man? How are you planning for, you're going to get out at some point, whether you get out or whether you retire. And he's like, I don't know. I just want to focus on the Marine Corps. And I think that's kind of the common answer. I don't want to go too much in depth, but I kind of feel like that was more of the common answer with a lot of the junior Marines or, first term and early second term Marines. It's they don't even understand that that's an actual thing. And me personally, and I'm sure you could probably attest, had somebody sat me down like I did my Marines, I'm like, dude, you need to start, whether it's saving, investing, or working on your degree or something specifically to what you're going to do when you get out. And I just feel people kept staring at me like I don't know what I'm talking about. So, I'm sure that, you were kind of in the same way, or I don't know if you felt that same type of thing, but that was kind of my reason for starting Veteran Influencers. So that was kind of long, but
No, I mean, it's a really valid point, and perhaps maybe it is more of an issue that's recognized in the Marine Corps, just because we put so much emphasis on this title Marine, right? We really do epitomize Marine Corps, right? And it's not to say that the brand and the identity of being a Marine isn't important, or even better so than the other branches, right? Because we epitomize and we have so much pride in that.
Right, absolutely.
And that's not to bash it whatsoever, but it's almost like the stakes are held here and it's just capped at the title Marine, right? And then you take away that uniform and you no longer have the identity shaped around that individual, and they're left as a carcass. And that's what I feel like, I had that happen to me. Essentially, I got in some trouble, and, it was the first failure that I truly experienced in my life. And right. I just felt like a carcass. I didn't have anything. I was stripped of my title, my rank, and things like that. And so it was really hard for me to grasp who I was, who Jessica was after that happened. You know, it was a
Right.
big learning point for me. It was a big changing point in my life to really rediscovering and redefining myself. And so, which is crazy because like a part of that the activity that came about to helping me find myself again was through traveling. I've
Right.
always used traveling as a source of identifying myself a little bit more because it connects me with humanity, maybe a little bit more with the people around me. I don't feel like I'm necessarily judged for the uniform, but maybe it's just I'm somewhere, you know, in another place in another time experiencing life with other people. So I
Right.
feel like we just like put too much emphasis on this title Marine. And again, it's not to denote or, you know, take away to downgrade what that truly means, but
Right.
perhaps it's just overvalued. And, you know, the sense of individualism is not really catered to as much. So I don't know. I mean, I get what you're saying. It's just like, it's kind of you're at a crossroads where you're trying to help service members really step outside the boots and the uniforms because that's all
Exactly.
that they know. It's really all that they know. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, you know, like I said, we spoke about it before, like veteran influencers, like the foundation of this brand that I've made is selflessness. So, I mean, to me, that's like the one word that can like sum up the majority of what like I would want people to, when they think veteran influencers, it's selflessness, right? Because that means so many different things. Like I give my time to people. People DM me, email me, and they ask me like, how can I do this? Or what are you doing about this? Like, how can I start my own podcast? How can I start my own YouTube channel? And like I enjoy doing all those things. And now I'm in a position to where like I feel like I can help to give a little bit more emphasis to our veterans, because I know veterans don't get half the props that they deserve, right? And I know so many veterans that are doing things outside of their main income that if I can be in a position to give like an extra like shining light on that, I mean, I absolutely love that.
Yeah, and you make a good point too, because I mean, like we as service members, like we have this innate desire to give back, right?
Right.
As much as you can look at somebody and be like, ah, you're kind of a crappy service member, like troop, whatever. Like individually, we all join like a greater purpose and like with a genuine intent.
Right.
So I think it's hard not to see that service members could do more in their lives. Like they're just not maybe given the opportunity or the tools, or maybe even the mindset to necessarily think, oh, I could do this, I could do more. And it's kind of, you know, it's heartbreaking because there's so much more to the possibilities that they have. So
Right. Absolutely. And like I said, I know I'm not the only one doing it. I know you're not the only one doing it, but together, if we continue to build this community that we're trying to do here at Veteran Influencers and also with Liborisk, because I'm pretty sure I was like one of the first people to support the page and live and all that. And I wanted to make sure, because I wanted to put my money where my mouth is. Like I truly support and I salute all you guys for, you know, all the veterans for actually going out and doing something outside of their comfort zone. So
yeah.
I definitely salute that. All right, so now we've kind of talked about, you know, early life, kind of early on in the Marine Corps, your experiences, not only doing your MOS, but just kind of like experiences, like kind of going through. Um, and you know, we talked about a few different places that you actually traveled, but before we actually like talk specifically about Liborisk, like where was the turning point? Because I know you talked about entrepreneurship, but you didn't necessarily say yet specifically Liborisk. So when did that become like a light bulb in your brain? And then when did you decide to act on that specifically?
So like after my big turning point and the big failure that I had in my career, you know, essentially I always use travel as like this point in time to rediscovering myself, because like I remember going my first solo trip in Thailand. It was like my eat, pray, love experience. Like I got dumped and like I was like, I'm gonna go find myself. And you know, it was just like a bad breakup I was going through. And I went to
Sorry, I
Thailand.
didn't mean to laugh.
It's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
And so like it was really cool. And I kind of did that when I went to Colombia. So I was in Colombia for about a month, and a lot
Oh
of
wow.
people were just like shocked. One, they were like, why are you going to Colombia? I was like, why not? You know, it wasn't necessarily something that everybody thought was a safe place for a single female to be traveling to, but quite the contrary. And I had just
Right.
been influenced to go check it out. And I did. And after that, you know, I spent a month out there, which was like the longest trip that I had ever taken in my life. And I came back, and this has happened on several occasions where people were like, how did you plan all this? Like, how did you figure out to go on a jungle trek for 4 days in Colombia? How did you figure out to go, jungle trekking in Borneo? How did you figure out to go, bar hopping in Thailand or this and that? Just like all the cool things that I've done,
Right.
And some people even thought that I was out of the military. They didn't even think it was possible for me to be doing these things while I was serving. And I saw that and I recognized, and I was like, man, everybody is asking the same question. How are they doing this? And why are they not doing it? Right. And that's where I felt like there was possibly a solution that I can help solve, because there is this huge disconnect between allowing service members to recognize that they have the ability to do more and see more during their service.
Right.
There's a lot of constraints to traveling. There's a lot of prerequisites to traveling. You can't just get on an airplane and go. We have duty, 24-hour duty. We have to have a Liberty Buddy in some places. It's like just wild stuff that normal people wouldn't have to worry about. And so I saw those, challenges as little obstacles, and I made my way through them so that way I could go travel. But ultimately that problem was the solution that I wanted to solve. And that's why I invented Liborisk. Not just for the sake of having a funny name that was a little bit cunning, but also because I really wanted to create an environment that inspired other troops to travel and really see more and do more and take more advantage of their service. Because it's a certain group that needs to be catered to. And I felt like I was the one that could start catering to it. So.
Right. And I'm sure it helps that, so one of the biggest, not complaints. All right, people, I'm not complaining about it, but one of the things that I've seen that of people that want to travel, but don't or can't, is they feel that because it's a lot easier if you're single, to travel. Because not only, you have some people have kids, some people, whatever their situation is, or maybe they just don't have the money for it because, they're trying to invest in their family or whatever, but they feel that like there's like this hardship on traveling when you're married. How can you either debunk that or relate and kind of help out those that want to travel that feel that they can't for whatever reason?
Yeah, for sure. A part of what Liborisk is going to be about is not just building like a community of troops, and really making them feel adventurous and like intrepid and giving them the opportunities to go see the world, but it's also about like making traveling easier, right? And so whether that's helping them get through kind of the prerequisites and the things that they need to do and learning about where, they need to go and what they need to do, but also like being mindful of their service and their lifestyle. So say you have like 2 dual active, service members and they're married. One of them, there's a possibility they're not even stationed together. And if they are, they have different timelines and schedules and everything like that. Maybe they get paid a little bit differently. So Liborisk itself would be the opportunity to for me to really sit down with somebody. Like I did a consult the other day, and it was just like going over the questionnaire that I had to really discovering who they were as a person and what their travel aspirations were, and then translating that into an actual itinerary for them. So you look at typical travel agencies and companies, and they don't necessarily have that one-on-one personal consultation opportunity for you to sit down with them and say, this is what I would love to do. This is how I want to do it. And these are the things I'm interested in, right? They kind of just say, hey, here's a tour. Do you want to book it? And you either do or you don't. But Liborisk is more about the educational aspect, making it easier, and then fulfilling whatever their aspirations are and translating those dreams into reality. Because again, service members, we got way too much crap on our hands, way too much. And if you look and you break down the layers of stuff that we have to do and concern ourselves with, whether, like for what you're saying, a service member who's married or trying to take the time out with their spouse to go traveling somewhere, that's a hard thing to get through. And even if you're single, and you say you're a single service member and you bought that yellow Mustang with 17% interest rate, and now you think you have no money. Yo, it's legit. Everybody does it. And so I would want to cater that experience around the possibility of them not having the wildest budget. So I don't know. It's on a case-by-case basis, but it would definitely be an individual type of experience to seeing what they want to do and how they want to do it.
Right. That's awesome. So, I've seen you posting on social media about Liborisk. And I'm going to be completely honest, and that's where I kind of that's where I, founded that, you were starting a company or you were trying to do something outside of the military. And just like how you talked about earlier, I'm not gonna lie, like I thought you got out. I was like, man, every time I saw you, I was like, oh, she's in a new location. Oh, she's over here now. I mean, I know some people like to like offset their posts, so it always makes it seem like they're gone. I didn't really ask the question, but then I saw your post about like surveys about Liborisk, and I put on there, what did I put? Oh, you were asking about merch, like for that, and I
Oh,
was
the
like, hey,
merchandise. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, can I get a shirt with like a what was it? A
Oh,
libo
the
bead or
fake
something?
leave papers.
Oh yeah, fake leave papers or something like that, or like like a false signature or something like that.
I know.
Yeah, so and then that's where I kind of like saw that you were branching out. And I'm gonna go out there and support. But like what kind of things have you done to kind of like get that message out? Because I'm assuming at this point, it's more of the junior Marines that are asking. Maybe?
It is, and that's where I'm still like discovering aspects of the business itself too, because I look at who possibly my early adopters are, right? Like who are these individuals that I can potentially help, um,
Right.
and provide services to. But of course, it's going to be easier to have younger service members who have no sense of direction when they want to go out and they have a passport with no stamps on it, right?
Right.
Vice, a senior service member who's maybe a little bit more experienced and a little bit wiser. At the end of the day, take away the travel agency, take away the business aspect. The best thing that I feel like I can do with this is really build a community, right? And you see communities, whether it be Vet TV, freaking number one source of just like community, and the Silkies hikes that they do, or the fitness realm. Like they're really, really good examples of building a community within the veteran and the service member, genre of audience. And so I
Right.
look at traveling and I see that there's other travel communities out there, that are very like niche and very tight and very supportive. Like Girls Love Travel is a really great page where it's just nothing but women who talk and who post and who connect and who support, across the entire globe, and
Right.
their main focus is traveling. There's another page called No Madness Tribe where, it's focused on African American travelers, and really supporting that community and getting them to see more of the world and see more of their culture, besides what you see on TV or besides what you see in the movies, and I think that's really beautiful and that's really authentic. And that's what I want to do with troops. Take away the business, take away the travel agency. If I can build a community that's based on experiencing the most out of life and elevating your perspective of humanity, like that is going to be beautiful and awesome. And that's going to serve its purpose long after I'm gone. So that's really like what Liborisk right now is for me. And eventually I want to launch a full travel agency and have services by January. But, I'm just kind of focusing on telling the travel stories and getting the word out, like getting a community together, man. Maybe we'll get some silky hikes with like Liborisk on it. I don't know.
That also, hey, absolutely. Listen, I'm pretty sure my legs aren't tanned right now, so I don't know if I'm gonna be wearing silkies at the moment. But I've definitely been doing squats, so I don't have to worry about the muscle wise. But so you spoke about, first of all, a lot of people, and I'm sure you noticed it as well. And we actually had like a little bit of sidebar about this, but you just mentioned like 4 or 5 different companies, and a lot of people, and I'm not saying that we're going to give them like some type of attraction, but a lot of people kind of refrain from like talking about competition or like the other people. I like the fact that you just came out blatantly and you just like nonchalantly said all their business names, and like in a good tone towards like, yeah, I want to go look that up now. I want to go see what they're about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm never going to dog any other company that's doing great. It's like the Gary
Right.
Vee mindset. Like, if you're winning, I'm winning, right? And I freaking
Right.
love that because at the end of the day, that's like what it's about. And these are really great communities that I want to emulate essentially in the military for their travel opportunities. So, I'm never going to look at somebody as a competition. I'm always going to look at them as a friend, somebody who's racing next to me. Because if you're looking to the side of you and not what's in front of you, you're losing anyway. So, but if we can
Right.
race together and we all have this endeavor to like do better, see better, that's what it's about to me. So yeah, I'm never going to dog anybody who's going to be winning on the side.
I love that. And I guess the reason why I mentioned it a little bit earlier, and once again, we had a sidebar a little bit about this, but like, listen, like, I could have 1 million followers, 200 million followers. I don't think I've made it. I don't think I'm any different than anybody else. And that's always been my mentality, no matter how great I ever become. And I would like to believe those that actually like know of me, see that I actually like walk it how I talk it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm glad to see other people that have that same type of mentality, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's like you can't take money with you to the grave, and you can have billions upon billions of dollars, but even the richest people die. So it's like, what do you want your life to be about? And when you mentioned the word legacy a little bit earlier, now I'm going to ask you specifically, which I already kind of know the answer to it, but like, what is your what is your end state for Liborisk? Like, is it I want to get to a certain point to where I can financially support myself outside of the military? I want to cater to a certain group in order to do X, Y, and Z. Is it legacy? Is it?
Yeah. Let me think.
Didn't mean to put
I
you on
mean,
the spot like that.
no, it's cool. I mean, there really is like these key milestones that I have with Liborisk that I want to achieve. The big, beautiful concept that I have in my head is to essentially start having Liborisk tours with service members and really connecting them. Say you get 10 troops together in Cambodia, and they get to go on this awesome, trekking tour. They get to go volunteer. They get to go to pub crawls, whatever it may be. Like that's a really cool thing. But at the end of the day, there's a connection between traveling and happiness, right? Like you said, like you can't bury yourself with all the money. We're all going to be eaten by the same dirt and worms. At the end of the day, you're going to take a lot of the moments and the experiences you have with you. And a lot of that stems from the opportunity of traveling. You can't stay in your hometown and expect to fulfill the curiosity that humans have, right? We're curious by nature. And so if you stuff yourself in a barracks room and you don't expand beyond that, I feel like that correlates a lot to like maybe the problems that we have in the military, right? We don't connect on the levels that we should because we just see what's inside the gates, what's inside the barracks. You give them an opportunity to step outside of that. And you know what? I'll challenge a lot of people and say that maybe a little bit more happiness and the morale would be better within the military itself if you just gave them the opportunity or made something a little bit easier for them to get out and see more and do more.
Absolutely. And real quick before we go on, I just want to say shout out to my man Eric McNally in the chat for dropping a 10 bomb for the veteran influencers with our very first donation. Thank you so much, my guy. I truly appreciate you. And this money that's donated, all donations are definitely going to go to a good place, continuing to build the brand and to help all the veterans that are on the show as guests and whatnot. I truly appreciate that. It seriously means the world. And everybody that's in the chat that's commenting, I'm sorry, I can't really comment every 2 seconds because I'm trying to, make sure I'm staying on topic and whatnot. But just let you know that I do see you guys' messages. And honestly, it means the world to us that you guys are participating. And thank you very much.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And just like you talked about it earlier, when you build a community, and not that it's about money, but I mean, eventually that'll come, more influence because like now your influence is a little bit more widespread. You can reach more people, so yeah,
well,
I'm all about that.
It's like with the brand with like Apple, right? That's such an easiest way of saying it. People are so ready to buy a brand new iPhone, not because it's necessarily an iPhone, but because of the community that Apple has built. Steve Jobs has built this identity with it. Like you're an Apple user, you're part of a community. And, you look at other really great industries in the world. And I love to refer to Simon Sinek because he's just the genius who kind of coined this idea of the golden circle and essentially like, what's your why? People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And, I always feel like I really connect with that. And that's what Liborisk is about too, is like, I had a hard time trying to figure out how I was going to monetize this thing, right? Everybody's like, how are you going to monetize it? I was like, I don't know. It's just going to solve a problem. like I don't know what does it mean? I just want to like solve this like travel problem that service members have. And they're like, yeah, but like business wise, you got to monetize it. I was like, okay, I'll get to that. But like the biggest thing really was just like, what do I need to do to get people out to experience the things that I did while I was in the military? You know what I mean? Like I didn't put a dollar amount on that because moments that I had across the world will never seem to value, to a single dollar. It's going to be much more long lasting than that. So I feel like it was just like such an easy way to come up with the idea and the solution, but it was really difficult to even put a dollar amount on it.
No, I truly hear that. And that's, we talked a little bit earlier about branding. Is what do you want your brand to be? Is it to where people just feel like you're always selling stuff, or it's like, hey, buy this or buy that, or are they buying you? So, and that's kind of what I've been thinking about with the whole veteran influencers. Shout out to your boy Kenneth Brown Lovelace with the 10 bomb in the chat. Hey, thank you so much. We truly appreciate that, man. You guys are absolutely amazing, and like I said, thank you. We definitely appreciate the support from you guys, and you guys constantly being active with us in the chat. Definitely appreciate that.
I love the support that you're getting. This is so great.
Oh my God, here we go.
This is awesome, man.
Sam T. Oh, I'm about to cry. Hey, Sam, thank you for the 10 bomb, man. You guys are just for the cause. Hey, thank you so much. We appreciate you so much. Thank you guys for just being here, man. I'm not gonna cry, damn it. I ain't gonna do it. Thank you. Just we definitely appreciate that. And I just know that as we continue, this is only episode 2. You know what I'm saying? The sky is the limit. And I know we're gonna continue to take this forward. But I definitely want to put the focus back on you, Jessica. So I do have one more question before we start to go into more so of how they can find you and tuning up a little bit more about Liborisk. But so once again, you named other companies, but what makes you different though? So that was kind of what I was elaborating to before, and I kind of got sidetracked. But
no, it's okay.
What makes you as Jessica and what makes you as Liborisk different to where people are gonna like hone to you specifically as opposed to another company that you mentioned,
another travel agency or something?
Right.
And that's something I've been really like trying to think about these past couple of weeks too, because when I was asked that question initially, I was just like, what makes me different?
Right.
What really makes me different? Like, not trying to toot my own horn or something or have a little bit of an airhead, but what makes me actually different and what makes the services of Liborisk different? And I could really boil it down to the factor of one, I've lived that life. Like, I am a service member. I'm not just some random civilian that feels like I'm giving you the best travel opportunity because I think I know how your life is. I know how your life is. I know how much you get paid in a certain rank. I know what duty is like. I know what it's like to have your leave approved last minute or denied last minute.
Hey, I don't know what you talk about. You know what I'm saying?
I know what the barracks life is like. I know what an MRE tastes like. I know what the chow hall is like. It's like, I know what it's like to have a Liberty buddy in Japan and have to be back by curfew. There's just things that I feel like I've lived, and because of my experience of service, connects me more to my potential clients than any other travel agency will. Not to mention, this is so much of a passion of mine. I remember just like growing up and my grandmother having these outrageous stories of telling me where she went and the things she did. And it was so beautiful to hear her stories of the things that she got to do. And I wanted to do that. Right. And so because it's not just like a hobby to me, it's like a true passion. I feel like I'm able to take this beyond your typical like mom who's sitting at home just starting a travel agency because she's bored. Not to like hate on the moms doing that, you know what I mean? But like, it's really something that I love and I live on a regular basis. And so, that, and I do have to just say, like, I mean, it's the community thing, right? Like, at the end of the day, the travel agency can fail. That's not the biggest thing. The really the biggest thing is the community. So if I'm able to build that brand and build that brand identity around the community itself and get together troops and get them on events and tours and doing things just together, right? Just together, that camaraderie and that environment is going to boost morale. It's going to be a synergetic experience that's going to get people, excited about their service, excited about the things that they get to do. You're not just from a small town in California that hasn't lived their life. You have now experienced things with other people that really care about you. And I think that, that makes the difference between me and another travel agency, because we're focused on the community, not just like booking you somewhere in Bora Bora. You know what I mean?
Right. So. And I think also that's like when you could put like face to name, it makes it more personable. Right. So like, I know obviously you call someone online, or you can go on the computer and you put your name and info, you're just like number 5 to them or number 2806 to them.
Yeah, your booking number.
Right. But I think what you're saying, at least what I'm getting from it, is Liborisk is more so of, I could see your profile, I could see like your face, and then I want to actually like know who that person is, not just I want to accept their payment type thing.
Absolutely. And that's why like we do the consultations beforehand. I'm still working on getting everything kind of solidified, but the travel consultation, it's free for itself. That's really an hour for me to sit down with the client and say, hey, what do you love to do? Do you like, the snow, mountains, or, sun more? Do you like to go travel by yourself or in groups? Are you a big partier? Are you not a partier? Do you have family? Do you have kids? Do you have any financial constraints? When I'm able to sit down and do that consult with somebody and really get to know them nitty gritty, that takes it a step beyond just having them as a booking number, right? Now they're a person, and they're somebody that I can put a face and name to, that I actually really care about at the end of the day. So yeah, I mean, it extends beyond a booking number, because at the end of the day, that's what a lot of travel agencies see you as, and that's not what I ever want us to become.
Right. No, I honestly, like, I absolutely do love that. And I feel like me as Chris, I've been, as you're learning how to do marketing and you're learning how to, we kind of talked about marketing and you kind of school me up a little bit, nothing big, nothing bad. It's okay. It's all right. No, but
just a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to help out. That's all.
No, I'm kidding. Listen, I don't really have like this huge amount of pride. Like, if I'm not accepting help, I'm just being ignorant. You know what I'm saying? So, and obviously you're way better at that than I am. So if you could look back at whether it's PFC, Quesada, or Lance Corporal, or just early on years, but use that same type of vision toward like the younger group of people that don't know that they can travel, that don't really know about travel and so on and so forth. Like, what would you tell them to kind of grab them in, not necessarily as a sales pitch, but more so of like opportunity wise? Like what is it that you would like give to them?
I would pretty much tell them like, hey, how do you feel that if you left this world today, would you be excited to say that you did as much as you could and experienced as much as you could? Their answer, maybe yes, maybe no, right? But more than likely, it would probably be no, right? Because they're too young to have experienced a whole ton of, a whole lot in their life.
Right.
So, if I can ask them that question and say, did you really experience the most in your life? Well, no, not really. I kind of want to do this and that. And I'm like, okay, well, how are you working to do that? How are you planning to do all those things? I don't really know. Or maybe they do know, right? Maybe they do have a plan, but at the end of the day, probably not. And that is the thing that I would ultimately try to sell to them, is saying, hey, you have this full list of things, this bucket list, right? Of experiences and things you want to do. Maybe you want to go skydiving in New Zealand. I don't know. At the end of the day, being able to take advantage of the opportunities you have while you're serving is going to be something that I'm going to be focused on, and just helping people do that to begin with, because they really think that they know what they want to do until they sit down and they start planning. And I hate to say it, but kids nowadays, they really don't know how to plan or research, or, maybe they do, maybe they don't. Maybe I make an assumption, but I want to make it as easy as possible. Because say you have some kid who joins and he enlists for 4 years, right?
Right.
A year of that is essentially training, maybe a school, whatever they're doing. And then they got like maybe 2.5 years in the fleet, and then they're out. If they did not go travel and go experience the most out of their service, and really get to see what life has to offer, I feel like that's negligent of the opportunities and what they really could have experienced. So, I don't know.
I think, and if you guys in the chat, if you guys want to chime in on this one specifically, I think everybody wants to, because I mean, when people find out you are a veteran, right? Because I'm sure like most people get out, they're gonna have their little their buttons and their I'm a veteran type hat.
Yeah.
And people are gonna ask them like, oh, you're in the service? Oh, what was your MOS? Oh, what did you do? Nobody wants to say, oh, I just kind of sat, played Call of Duty in my barracks room, getting started rage quitting because the Wi-Fi was terrible and I was lagging all the time, or whatever it is, or I just did pull-ups all day. It's like, come on, man, you didn't do anything while you're in, you didn't travel.
Yeah.
I think everybody has that like desire, that want to like say, well, hey, here's my story. I did X, Y, and Z. I
Yeah.
think because of that, it kind of it should, in theory, to me, draw people to Liborisk. Those of you that are out there, Liborisk, Liborisk, Liborisk. And it should draw you to that, because who doesn't want to tell a story about, hey, I went here and these are the things that I did, or hey, I went here and these are the type of ventures that I did. I went to a few places, maybe one day we'll talk about what veteran influencers did, hey, maybe one day. But everybody wants to tell that story,
Yeah.
in my opinion. And it seems like you're going to be able to give them that opportunity to do so.
Well, for sure. And like, even if you internalize it a little bit, right? Not so much the external opportunity to talk about the story, which is really nice and juicy for us, but people want to talk about that story, but then you also kind of look at the factor that it's almost like bragging. It's like, look at everything I got to do. But if you internalize it a little bit more and say, hey, look at the things I got to do and look how much I got to grow, I think that's just as important. I look at moments when I had traveled for the first time by myself, and I'm like, wow, I thought I was independent and strong and cool because I was a Marine.
Right.
But then I went backpacking solo in Thailand and Colombia, and then I realized what really true independence was.
Did you take your military pack?
No, I did not.
Come on, you didn't have the 10 pack?
I didn't. I did not. I did take my combat boots though. My freaking I did. I hiked with those things. They got torn up. Colombia hated it.
You must have had bait lights, huh?
Oh my God. Yeah. They were such good hiking boots. I swear to God. Cause I mean, like I'm serious. I was in the Colombian jungle for 4 days. We were hiking to this place called La Ciudad Perdida, and it's the lost city. It's like Machu Picchu's, the Colombian Machu Picchu. Okay. It's pretty wild. So like that like month there really like redefined who I was during that year. And I feel like we're constantly changing every year, right? It's like your body, you got to like readapt to like the type of shape you're in. But like your mental state too. And you're, almost lost my computer.
I thought I was falling over for a second. I was like, hold on, let me adjust.
So like if you going back to your point, like internalizing the aspect of growth, I think that's like more so something that should be talked about. And again, it's like the identity. We have this like such a connection with the uniform that when we get to step out beyond borders and really learn what the rest of the world is about, it changes your perspective. You learn a whole lot more about what this world is about, and the type of people that inhabit it, and the kind of impact that you can have, that I think it extends beyond the uniform. It really does. So.
That's awesome. And, you definitely brought up a good point. It's just like having your own identity, like to an extent. I'm not gonna say like all Marines are the same, but like we have like similar like traits, obviously that are ingrained in us since recruit training. But seeing who you are outside, like you said, outside of that uniform, I want to see who you are as a person. And Liborisk can definitely help you out with those travel arrangements so we can see that characteristic,
Yeah.
But do you have any last things that you want to like, any like lasting impressions that you want people to have about Liborisk or about yourself?
I would just have to say I've really truly grown because of the military. I've grown so much because of the Marine Corps, and I'm really thankful for that. But I'm thankful more so for stepping out and kind of living an unorthodox life. I hope that with Liborisk, that's something that people can experience the easiest way. And again, I'm going to keep reiterating this because it really is the biggest factor of it, is the community. I want people to join in and feel like they're a part of a community that's going to be supportive and allow others to really get outside and take those steps out into the world, and elevate their perspective of humanity. Because at the end of the day, you take off the uniform, you take off those boots, you take off that dog tag. Who are you? Who are you truly? And you really get to find that when you get outside your comfort zone. And the military is great at pushing you in your comfort zone, right? We all have these limits and they're kind of tapped out when you join the military. That's great, but how does it transform you, right? You want to talk about the transformation that occurs in the uniform. That only goes to a certain extent. When you go outside of your comfort zone and you see what the rest of the world has to offer, that's a type of transformation that can only happen through traveling. And that's what Liborisk is going to be about. It's going to enable service members to do that the easiest and the best way and the safest way.
That is awesome. Honestly, like, so the last thing I want to do is your, social media where they can find your website. But I just want to say, like, what a privilege it is to have you on my show. Like I said, I don't want just anybody to come up here. There's certain traits and certain attributes that I want to kind of represent the Veteran Influencers brand. And I mean, shoot, your standards higher than mine. Like, you're better than I am, you know what I'm saying? But like, I am truly honored to have you on the show. And it truly shows by like all the support, we've been getting in the chat as well. And on social media when we've been promoting it. So to all those that are like here because of Jessica, hey, thank you so much for showing up and showing your support. And just everyone in general. And I appreciate you. And, I'm hoping that, this will definitely give some light onto Liborisk and yourself as well. So, I mean, is there like some social media or anything that you want the people
Absolutely.
to know?
Of course, I wouldn't leave you without that. No, if everybody wants to follow us on Instagram, it's Liborisk, Liborisk. That's where we really share travel stories. So if you're a service member or a veteran who has some great travel photos, wherever it may be, go ahead, shoot us a DM. We'll get your story told so that way it can inspire other troops to travel. And we also have a Facebook group page. Please join. There are some questions you got to answer, but otherwise that's really just the internal group to get some questions asked, like shoot some information around. That's where the community comes together and you really get to cross-pollinate some ideas and topics and stuff like that.
And so do you have a website right now or is it in the works?
We do. You can go to libotachrisk.com. That really delves more into like who we are, what we're about, what a Liborisk is. So you can go on there.
Some of you guys.
Yeah, I know, right? I really encourage a lot of people to go on that website and check out the About Us or what is a Liborisk section, because that's going to help you, truly understand what being a Liborisk is about. We're risky in the right ways. We're willing to take those steps and like go see the world and without getting in trouble, which is a big thing that service members kind of, do.
No.
We tend to get ourselves in some sticky situations. That's all I'm saying. So yeah, they can check out the website and stuff like that. The biggest thing to communicate will definitely be the Instagram and the Facebook right now.
Awesome. And you said around January, February is maybe when you'll be like fully functioning or?
Yeah. So right now we're doing free travel consultations, and because the world is kind of shut down, the consultation is really just a way for me to practice and like getting the whole customer process thoroughly vetted. So I know like, okay, this is the questionnaire I have. This is how I set up the bookings. This is the Libo brief that I have, which is like a little goodie package with their itinerary and like, swag. So they get like a Libo brief and everything.
Yeah, I might have to do that.
I know. So once I'm like practicing on that for the next couple months, I'm going to have my travel agency certification done so I can get itineraries together. And then, hopefully by January in general, the world will kind of open up a little bit more. And bookings can be made and stuff like that, but we'll have everything vetted and done by January 2021.
Awesome. Hey, you guys, please go out there, support Liborisk. Make sure you give the pages a thumbs up, follow the page. Much more content to come from her, because I see the quality of content she puts out. It's absolutely amazing. Her brand already is absolutely amazing. And I just want to thank her so much for taking the time to come onto the show, onto the podcast, and show some love, not only for the veteran influencers, but just for everybody that's out there. So Jessica, I salute you and I truly appreciate you.
Thank you. It's been great chatting with you. I'm happy that we got to catch up.
Absolutely. All right, everybody in the chat, we're out of here. Appreciate you guys for staying around. And yeah, so we'll see you next time. Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So 5:30 p.m. on the West Coast. We're going to continue to do this weekly. We'll continue to promote it and, and other things. And I'm sure we're going to be able to have Jessica on the show again if she, got some time on her hands.
Would love to.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.